The year was 1762. The French, engaged in conflict with the British for control of the North American continent, were faring poorly in the waning days of the French-Indian Wars. Hopes for success were diminishing with each passing day, and France began taking measures to curb British influence. Desperate not to have their possessions in the south fall entirely into British hands, France signed the Treaty of Fontainebleau in 1762, ceding to Spain all territories west of the Mississippi, as well as what was called the Isle of Orleans. When the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1763, Great Britain was only given control of Louisiana east of the Mississippi, save for the Isle of Orleans. France's gambit did check British power as New Orleans grew into a major port and trading center, and its geography allowed it to control access to the great artery of commerce, the Mississippi River. But the secession of territory ignored those settlers in and around New Orleans who had immigrated under the fleur-de-lis. Their concerns were secondary, and their displeasure would find voice in revolution. They also found comfort in a trusted priest who continues to minister to the faithful even in death. New Orleans was founded in 1718 by Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne, Sieur de Bienville, the governor of the French colony of Louisiana. Adrien de Palget, an engineer, arrived in the city in 1721. He began laying out plans for the French quarter, making sure to lay aside space for the construction of a church. The church would be dedicated to Louis IX, sainted King of France. A succession of French governors from Perrier to Bienville to Vendré attended Mass there alongside the children of both colonists and slaves. Over 100 of them are buried under the floor. The prevailing belief at the time was that being buried under the church would bring the dead closer to heaven. The belief now is that the ghost of a bishop still watches over his former parishioners. He is always silent as he observes from the altar. On rainy days, though, he will sing, filling the air with a mournful Kyrie, an elegy for the victims of the resistance. Spain gained control of New Orleans in 1762, but did not send an official to govern the city until 1766. When French colonists realized what had happened, they protested, rebelling against the new Spanish regime. After 2 years of protest, ineffectual Spanish governor Don Antonio Ulloa was ousted from power. Realizing the threat of the insurrection, Spain dispatched a new governor in 1769, an Irish mercenary named Don Alejandro O'Reilly, more colorfully remembered today as Bloody O'Reilly. O'Reilly came to New Orleans determined to quell the insurrection. He had at his disposal 24 ships and a force of 3,000 men, which outnumbered the entire free adult male population of New Orleans. In short order, O'Reilly had routed out the French leaders with little opposition. To set an example and establish a deterrent, he ordered the deaths of 6 French aristocrats. 5 were shot by a firing squad, and the last was stabbed to death with a bayonet. O'Reilly decreed that the bodies would lie exposed to the elements and rot. For the French Catholics of New Orleans, the act was not only a gross violation of tradition, but also the greatest of insults. But O'Reilly was determined to serve notice that he would not tolerate disorder. St. Louis Church would not allow the bodies to rot. The executed men had attended the church for years and had been close with the pastor, Pierre Dagobert. Dagobert had embraced all worshippers, Spanish, Creole, French, or American, in accordance with his belief that all were equal in the eyes of God, and that everyone, regardless of their past, deserved a proper burial. O'Reilly's order was an affront against everything Dagobert stood for. The governor may have executed 6 men, but he could not suffocate the human spirit as easily. In defiance, Dagobert and 2 other priests took it upon themselves to perform a proper religious service for the dead at the St. Louis Church, and then lay the bodies to rest in St. Louis Cemetery. Number 1. Dagobert led a procession in rain from the church to St. Peter's Street, singing a Kyrie along the way to comfort and support the mourners. Dagobert was lauded and praised, a hero to his parish. The colonists never forgot Pierre Dagobert, even as New Orleans prospered under Spanish rule. Neither did the Spanish, it seems. When the second of 2 great fires swept through New Orleans in 1794, the St. Louis Church was destroyed. It was a Spaniard, Don André Almonester de Roxa, who spent a small fortune reconstructing the city, including the St. Louis Church. Today, the St. Louis Church is the St. Louis Cathedral, the oldest cathedral in the United States. Its three spires soar above Jackson Square. Both French and Spanish are interred within the church, finding in death a reconciliation with the bloody past. But lest the lessons of history be forgotten, Pierre Dagobert continues to walk the grounds even now. It is said that on days when rain falls from the heaven, Dagobert's mournful song can still be heard in the square, a lament for the fallen.